I am making this video for people who are just interested in hearing the various genres. Perhaps you want to find a new genre that you yourself would like to read, but also for writers who are perhaps struggling to see what genre or category your work fits into. Hopefully within these variety of massive lists, you will find the one that suits your book. Hi guys, today we're going to talk about book genres in popular fiction. There are 4 categories of books: drama, poetry, fiction, and non-fiction. In this video, we're going to focus on fiction. Fiction itself is also broken down into 2 categories. Popular fiction, this is plot-driven fiction written for a specific genre, and literary fiction, character-driven writing, which is valued for its complex form, language, or style. Today we're going to focus on popular fiction. So within this genre, you can split this also into 2 types. One is genre, which is the main category your story fits into. The main genres are romance, horror, thriller and suspense, science fiction, and crime and mystery. Within these genres, there are so many subgenres. The subgenre is a subcategory within that genre. So this would be things like if your book was a romance but it was set in a historical period. In order to discuss these subgenres, I'm splitting this video into 5 separate videos. In each one, I will go through the various subcategories in each of these genres. Today's category is science fiction and fantasy, which is my favorite genre. Science fiction and fantasy is known for being the more imaginative of the various genres because it generally creates an entire new world along with telling a story. Science fiction is generally defined because it has a scientific grounding to real life. Fantasy, on the other hand, is normally conveyed by having no relevance to real life at all and possibly not following any of the normal everyday rules. With that, let's get into the subgenres of sci-fi and fantasy. Alternate history, speculative fiction that changes the accepted account of a historical event. Cyberpunk, stories featuring tough outsiders in a high-tech near future where computers have produced major changes in society. Dark fantasy, tales that focus on the nightmarish underbelly of magic venturing into the violence of horror novels. Dystopian, stories that portray a bleak future world, such as Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. Erotic, science fiction or fantasy which focuses on sex. Heroic fantasy, stories of war and its heroes, the fantasy equivalent of military science fiction. High or epic fantasy, tales with an emphasis on the fate of an entire race or nation, often featuring a young nobody hero battling an ultimate evil, such as Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Historical, speculative fiction taking place in a recognizable historical period. Mystery sci-fi, a cross-genre blend that can be either a sci-fi tale with a central mystery or a classic whodunit with sci-fi elements. Mythic fiction, stories inspired or modelled on classic myths, legends, and fairy tales. New Age, a category of speculative fiction that deals with occult subjects such as astrology, psychic phenomena, spiritual healing, UFOs, and mysticism. Post-apocalyptic, stories of a life on Earth after an apocalypse, focusing on the struggle to survive. Space opera, a traditional good guy bad guy face-off with lots of action and larger-than-life characters. Spy-fi, tales of espionage with sci-fi elements, especially the use of high-tech gadgetry. Steampunk, a specific type of alternate history in which characters in Victorian England have access to 20th century technology. Superheroes, stories featuring characters endowed with superhuman strengths or abilities. Thriller sci-fi, a sci-fi story that takes on the classic world at risk cliffhanger elements of a thriller. Time travel, stories based on the concept of moving forward or backward in time, often delving into the existence of parallel worlds. Urban fantasy, a fantasy tale in which magical powers and characters appear in an otherwise normal modern context, similar to Latin American magical realism. Vampire, Variations on the classic vampire legend, recently taken on many sexual and romantic variations. Young adult, speculative fiction aimed at a teenage audience, often featuring a hero of the same age or slightly older than the reader. Arthurian fantasy, reworkings of the legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Bangsian fantasy, stories speculating on the afterlives of famous people. Biopunk, a blend of film noir, Japanese anime and postmodern elements used to describe an underground biotech society. Children's fantasy, a kinder, gentler style of fantasy aimed at young readers. Game-related fantasy, tales with plots and characters similar to high fantasy but based on a specific role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons. Hard science fiction, tales in which real present-day science is logically extrapolated to the future. Mundane science fiction, a movement that spurns fanciful concepts like warp drives, wormholes, and faster-than-light travel for stories based on scientific knowledge as it actually exists. Military science fiction, war stories that extrapolate military technology and tactics into the future. Romance, speculative fiction in which romance plays a key role. Social science fiction, tales that focus on how characters react to their environments, including social satire. Soft science fiction, tales based on the more subjective, softer sciences such as psychology, sociology, and anthropology. Sword and sorcery, a classic genre often set in a medieval period and more concerned with immediate physical threats. Wuxia, fantasy tales set within the martial arts traditions and philosophies of China. And thank you guys so much for watching. I try to make these videos as detailed as possible with as many of the subgenres as I can find. I of course probably missed some out. I've put the links below to the various different articles and videos I use to find these genres, and I hope you found what you were looking for within them. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to see as soon as I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram or Tumblr. I post general bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. If you'd like to see this list in written form, you can go to my website, the link is below this video. And thanks for watching guys, bye!